Hey, welcome back to Small Town Loud Music. This is episode 5, continuing into Never Better with the song Why Wait.
That's Mike's baby there. That song was dope. Trying to think. I can't remember what part I had in that, if any. I think I helped write part of the guitar riffs, like the second guitar riffs and stuff. But that was one was just catchy and jumpy. I can't remember what bands Mike was listening to a lot at that time, but it came out. I remember it coming out in that song. It just Mike, like the thing I always tried to get Mike to lean more my songwriting style that way, because when he did, like, he preferred like the heavy metal, but when you could get him to bend and write in the more melodic versions of, like, for Mike writing Why Wait, if you asked him, I think he would probably say like that's one of his, like, quote unquote weaker songs, right? But for me, like a melody guy, like, and I like the metal, but I also like the melody too. To me, that song, I was like, damn, like I could easily see Mike getting signed writing stuff like this down the road, because I think I think he could have churned a million of those out if he wanted to, but it was just, that was never his full on style. But we all appreciated the hell out of that song. Like, to me, that was an opening song, in my opinion. Like, that's the perfect opening song, and I think that's why we put it like in our demo that we did at the studio.
This is one song I think from Never Better that I actually do remember. I didn't remember that it was from Never Better, but I love this song. This song has actually quite a bit of energy and a lot of, it's got a really good message, I feel. And I feel like it would be something that would be really good to put in any type of music video too.
I do like how the dynamics and the changes in intensity go, because it just kind of goes from, how we live life, how sometimes, there's kind of those slow moments and then those more extreme moments, and that song really seems to capture that emotion that exists. Many songs are kind of written in a way that there's going to be, just kind of one dynamic to the song. And that's what makes Why Wait a really great song, is the fact that it has those change ups and kind of that variation, which we all can relate to and we know exists in the world.
I really thought that was going to be the one that we landed in someone's hands and got attention for it. I always felt like um, any one of Mike's songs at any given time was going to be the reason that things popped off. There was just something about the vibe he was in and the things he was doing and the style he was writing for those times where I'm like, it's a shame that this isn't out there and we didn't have the access to recording all the time and to have the equipment to do it properly. We're always trying to get there, man. And I felt like if we had those avenues, who knows, really, who knows, with Mike's writing talent and guitar talent. He can play drums too. Like, all the things that you did melodically and lyrically, Bart's creativity. And I think, if anything, on my end, I helped balance everybody's things together to make it make sense. That if I did anything, that was probably what I did best. But I could see the good in everyone, man. I could see the potential they had in everyone, and it's a shame that it was just different times back then. Different times.
No, man, I'm going to say it again. Like, from my perception, like, I was pretty sure that if we were going to get our foot in the door at all, it was going to be because of something that you did. Like, I I think if we had a prayer of, getting somebody to, because some record exec with a fucking tie is going to be like, well, how can we market this? How can we sell this? And the only way that they were going to understand anything is with your melodic stuff that you were doing. And that's not in any way a criticism. It's just what you were doing, I think, would have played without raising so much trouble. It would have been something that they could play on the radio pretty easily. And without that first foot in the door, I didn't figure that we had a prayer. So I think you would have got us in, and then other people, once we had an opportunity to show what we had to offer, other people would have been interested in what the rest of us were doing. But I think that first step would have had to have been you.
I just remember seeing flyers with the band name on it, and the only time I've got to hear any of their music again was through you.
Why Wait was definitely one of my favorites. I think that was the kicker. Even when it was recorded, that was everyone's favorite.
So Why Wait, the first time I heard that song was actually, and like recognizing what that song was when Never Better played after we did at the Ricketts Review. And that was that the song you guys opened with? I think it might have.
Might have been.
And I remember Bart. You think this is you if you're close your ears to Mortheo, you better close your ears now. And the violinist, like, what a different vibe that was. I think she knew, because she was perfectly sandwiched in between these two bands that we knew they weren't going to like. Those older people with their fingers in their ears, and so much so that was the mentality of our music, that's what the news review decided to put as a reference to our band. And didn't put us on stage very much. They put these people closing their ears. Like, yeah, I mean, more testament to what Roseburg would have thought about Mortheo, to be honest. I still loved playing the Ricketts Review, though. I still loved it because that was, without any frame of reference, the biggest ticket to playing something big. We thought that there's a potential we could get on that Saturday stage. Really, there wasn't. They would never let us go on there, especially if they let the violin player on there and not either of us. But we believed in ourselves. We believed in ourselves big time, and we threw down regardless.
Ricketts Review and Mike's hair making it into the local newspaper.
Oh, that was a good time, man. What was the song we played there? It was a heavy one.
We did.
Oh God,
we did like two. Because you could always sneak two if you just played one into the other. And I remember the second one was 12 Gauge Solution.
That was Bart's song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the first one was song Mike wrote when he was really into Deftones at the time, I think, because it definitely had some Deftones qualities to it. But goddamn, I wish I could remember the names of these songs, man. But regardless, it was a heavy song, and it introduced, like, the way the song started, it'd be like
Hatred.
The song was called Hatred. And it came out with just the normal guitar riff going and a little bit of bom during the verses to build it up. And you're sitting at this Ricketts Review thing, and Myrtle Creek's a small town, right? They have this talent show. I don't know if they still do it every year, but they don't exactly expect metal bands to come out and play this thing, right? So we're sitting there on stage with all these old people, and right away they're looking at Mike with purple hair, and at the time, like, if you're walking around with purple hair, you're misfit, right? Like, people, like, nowadays you see it, it's just like, yeah, the person's got purple hair, so what? it was a big deal back then, you know, like you were advertising that you didn't fit the mold, basically. So the whole crowd's already on edge. The riff starts coming in slowly. The drums start filling in here and there. Then all hell breaks loose, and the whole band just layers in the guitars and the drums kick in. And at the very start of all that happening, Mike lets out a huge scream. And right away, this lady in the front row, right by the amplifier, just starts doing this. And right away, everyone's like, oh, fuck, how long is this song going to last? And I think it was like at least a 3.5 minute song, at least, you know. Yeah, but we gave it to him. Like, the one thing about Never Better is, like, we didn't give a fuck about how we were going to come across. We were genuine, you know, like, we would blow you away with a song like Hatred that was heavy metal, and then maybe within the next 2 songs we might do something that doesn't even have distortion and it sounds like an Everclear song, you know. We didn't care what you thought about it, because we had all these multiple band influences, and we figured, like, if we're listening to all this music and we like all this music and we'll play all this music around each other and we're enjoying it, why wouldn't someone enjoy what we're doing, you know? And honestly, that was always a big hurdle that Never Better had, is in those days they wanted you to be regimented, right? Like, they wanted a specific sound. You need to sound like Linkin Park, you need to sound like Deftones, you need to sound like Everclear, you need to sound like Smashing Pumpkins. We might have, if we were to make album after album with that, the whole album would, each song you might get every single one of those bands in those songs, you know. And that was always a challenge in those days to get the recognition, you know. And it even when we did get played on the radio, like, that particular fact would be pointed out. They'd point out, like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. One song's metal, then the next song is a love song, you know, like, it didn't register. I think it would register better nowadays because more people are open-minded, especially when it comes to music, you know. But back to the Ricketts review, that was all said and done, and you could tell there was, like, the 3 heavy metal lovers in the crowd that were just stoked that we did that, right? We'd won them over. Like, whoever was into our style of music in that crowd that day, they were completely won over, and they thought it was the best shit ever. However, everyone else was like, that is not the national anthem, that is not a tap dance routine, and that is not country music. I did not like it. And it made the paper. I mean, like Marilyn Manson said, there's no such thing as bad exposure, you know. If that's what we had to do to get exposure, I'd have blown their fucking ears off 40 more times to get in the paper. I didn't give a shit.
So, talk about Never Better and Morthio at Ricketts Review. You recall this incident?
Was that when you guys set off the car alarms? Down the street?
I don't know if we set off car alarms, but I remember specifically that you came and told me that we gave a guy a seizure. And it was the violin playing girl in between those two bands.
No, so Ricketts Review is a piano shop, kind of like the predominant music store. So we got a bunch of, they give us free strings when we're on tour, you know, there's like, you know, like all this stuff. But definitely like high school brass, piano, percussion in terms of timpanis, not drum sets. I hope that makes sense in terms of like who they were as a company. Been around for 300 years or something, like from the beginning of Roseburg. Like this place was music to Roseburg. So you need a clarinet reed, go to Ricketts. You know, you need a brand new trumpet mouthpiece, Ricketts. You know, so basically they had this thing, it was called Ricketts Review, and they did it every year. And what they would do is they'd actually shut down a block of the city. So we're talking like, you know, big buildings, high rises, you know, 2, 3, 4 stories. But they'd shut the street down. They put up this like trailer, like a semi-trailer, like a tractor trailer, like a trailer. And they'd have like 2 little PA speakers, like probably 10s or something. And so kids would get up from like local grade schools and play hot cross buns on the flute. You know, there'd be like a vocal band with no mics and everyone could hear them fine. Or there would be like a clarinet and everyone would be like, ooh, it's a little loud. You know, so it was like, the physical aspects of where this was done was like, I mean, if you would clap, it go ta 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 off the walls. So here comes Morpheus. And so basically what they end up doing, you guys, is like, you're like, hey, we're a little loud, you know, sorry about this. You get up and play, and right when Toby hits the snare drum, it goes ta 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 off all the walls. It's not like slow beats. It's not like ta 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 1 2 3 4 ta ta ta. You know, it's like heavy, right? And so a car alarm goes off down the street just because of like the thunder. And yeah, and some guy in the audience, he's just, you know, he's in a lawn chair and he has a glass of wine and he's like ah like that, because it was, yeah, so that was really funny. That was a good one.
Now, it was always funny in Roseburg because everybody always told us, do the Ricketts Review, do the Ricketts Review. You know, random musicians, singers, talent, all kinds of stuff. So we thought, I don't know if they'll like us, but let's go do it. You know, did it with Mortheo. Never Better was there too. We did. We had the 1 year we got publicized because during one of the sets, somebody had rode their bicycle and passed out in our crowd. They've been riding for a long time and different things like that, but they put it as if our music was, I guess, demonic or whatever they wanted to call it. It was upsetting to a bit of the crowd. And because this guy passed out, they put it as we kind of caused that. So, you know, Brian's right. Good publicity, bad publicity, it doesn't really matter. It does at a point, but it doesn't really matter. It just getting the name out there, misunderstanding things that get written up about you, roll with them. I mean, Never Better got written up tons of times for people plugging their ears. Mortheo got written up tons of times for people plugging their ears. We're loud. We were young. And we were in your face. Not every song was a pretty song. I mean, and in fact, at one point, Brian had to prove that he could sing pretty and we could play pretty because people kept saying, no, you can't, you're a grunge band. We were more than a grunge band.
I did look at the photo that was on this drive with the people with their fingers in their ears, and then I remembered seeing that before and kind of like laughing at it and just shaking my head. But, you know, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah. I'm old people like that, or just can't handle you. It can't handle the screaming, the power, the emotions.
They're part of the ones and stuff I was talking about with, you know, the pictures of the old people and stuff, and they're down in the park. They were the ones that were doing that. That wasn't Mortheo. Blend them all together anymore.
It was both.
They were both, yeah. All right, well, it's still blending all together for me.
But we still got a couple things. I think my favorite one was that one in Roseburg, the Tumbles for Jesus. We were the
Ricketts Review.
We were the openers for Tumbles for Jesus, and it was we made the newspapers. I still got the newspaper article.
Yeah, no, it wasn't you guys that started. It was I can't remember what was going on first, but I remember it was Mortheo, and then it was the violin playing girl, and I remember like the judges and stuff were plugging up their ears for Mortheo, and you specifically were just like, if you plugged your ears for Mortheo, plug your ears again, because this isn't going to be any better. And in that newspaper article, they're like, to be fair, they warned us.
Oh, yeah. I think so. I still have it. I want to dig it out and read it. But, yeah. That was fun.
I thought it was funny how it wasn't even a picture of Mike, it was a picture of Mike's hair.
Right, yeah, because they're so shocked that somebody could have an alternative color hair, yeah. This is what it was like in the old days.
Yeah. Now people have that crazy dyed hair, it doesn't even mean anything.
I know, you're a normie now with that kind of shit.
Similarly, I remember at the time that everybody was down for Ricketts Review, and Mike had his bright red hair. I remember Mike being like, why the fuck are all these assholes staring at me? And I'm like, well, you're a minority, which is rare in Myrtle Creek, and you have bright red spiky hair, which is also rare in Myrtle Creek, and you're walking next to a dude that's covered in chains and spikes and crazy ass contacts. Like, this is not an everyday occurrence for these folks. Like, yeah, people are gonna look. It's nothing personal. Nobody's trying to like stare you down or anything. Well, some of them might have been pricks and I don't like that, but it was just very out of the ordinary.
I remember amongst the baffled crowd and the old people with their ears plugged, like off in the distant corner of the parking lot, were these folks that were sitting in the bed of their pickup truck with the tailgate down, drinking beers, going woo from the like lone corner. Woo! Rock and roll.
Yeah, there was some people that were into it. Like the preservatives were there.
Yeah.
And
that
dude had a seizure, and Chris Doss told me that I gave that dude a seizure. Or the Morthio gave him a seizure.
Holy shit.
He was bullshitting me, but...
Didn't they eventually become Exit 103, or is that a different...
No, that was the guys that played the cover tunes. Preservatives eventually became Decibel Network.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was mostly the same members that transferred over into that. The best thing about that is that Morthio had just had them plugging their ears. And then there was a girl, I think, that played violin in between that. And then Ben came out and was just like, hey, brace yourselves, because we're going to do just as bad, if not worse. And, oh, God. It even says in that newspaper article, they warned us. I think the violin playing girl went on to the finals, and I don't want to say that she wasn't talented, but I can't help but wonder if part of that is because we bombarded them on either side of her, and she was just like an oasis in the desert for these old people that couldn't handle fucking rock music.
We started off kind of like in a Green Day era, I would say, right? Just trying to learn whatever we could. And as time went on, I don't know if it's because we got more older and jaded as time went on, but during those times, like about the time we started Never Better, there was grunge was coming down off its decline, and heavy metal was starting to pick up into the mainstream. So the more we got heavy metal influence, the harder we definitely became. I think in those days you were always trying. It's not like it is nowadays where you have YouTube and you get to put out whatever you put out, and there's going to be a niche for whatever it is you're doing that people will listen to. In those days, like you always heard the term sold out, right? We were trying to do whatever we could do and still be comfortable with what we were putting out without selling out, So we would have a lot more stuff that we would focus on to get attention, to get gigs that wasn't our like heaviest stuff, but we definitely had heavy stuff in the barrel as time went on, and most of the heaviest stuff came from Mike and Bart for sure.
Well, and that was another thing too, as far as like us being interested in doing it professionally, is that back then especially, and even into like the mid 2000s, like, and maybe even still today, I have no idea what it's like today, but people were looking for you to have a certain style. They didn't want you to color outside the lines at all. They wanted to know, are you a metal band? Are you a grunge band? Are you a punk band? And if you're Never Better saying, we like a bunch of different genres of hard rock, and we take what we want and put it in there when we want. Labels probably weren't trying to hear that. I know that in later bands I talked to this A&R guy that was like, well, you haven't really found your style. I was like, motherfucker, we did find our style. Our style just isn't, what you're trying to market. And I don't know. It's like you said, like we weren't gonna sell out. I remember definitely not being opposed to money. Like a lot of our fucking whole things that held us back were due to money. So if we could get those barriers out of our way, fuck yes, give me some money. But we just weren't going to sell our souls to get it,
Do you think having 3 different songwriters in Never Better made it more diverse, or do you think it all blended together pretty seamlessly?
I didn't see any flaws, really. I wasn't really too much behind the scenes on that section there of when you guys were coming up with it. I mainly only was there for the enjoyment part. I got the fun part. I didn't see the hash out part.
I remember at that show, I think it was at that show in Millbreak, the Millside part, where your cousin's band played for Never Better. And I remember he threw his guitar on the stage after the song. That was pretty wild. Throw the guitar down. Didn't quite destroy it, but...
Yeah, I do remember when he chucked that guitar. He just threw it up in the air and it came crashing down. And then he jumped on it and fucking did the twist on the fucking thing. And I remember his dad was pissed, but I also remember that people in that crowd went nuts for that shit. They were riled up and things were going good and we were getting a good response, and I think that's what caused him to go ahead and trash his guitar like that. I think he actually fixed the damn thing afterwards and kept playing with it, but I can't remember for sure.
It's definitely one of those things you look back and you'll think I wish these kids nowadays knew what that experience was like. Like if you're my age, you always talk to kids about you don't know what it's like to go into an actual arcade back in the day. If you played in a band back in my day, back in Never Better days, these kids nowadays, they probably don't understand what that experience was like. I mean, you busted your ass. You didn't want to work a job if you were in a band, right? You pretty much didn't work a job unless you absolutely had to eat. Or the other reason was you had to save up to get studio time for a demo. It's the only, when you're in a band like that during that era, you didn't give a shit about money other than to use that money to buy equipment or buy time, rent out a music hall to play a gig. Pay to play was a popular saying back then. We paid to play everywhere we went, and we paid to play to do demos, and then we did footwork back in that day. You dropped your demos off at clubs and different rock venues around Reno and stuff like that. You tried to send them into the radio to get them played on the air. It was a whole different vibe in those days than what it is now.
I do want to clarify something as far as pay to play that was mentioned. We didn't pay to open for somebody or so what Chad's talking about is we would pay for our own place to play, pay for our equipment, pay for our recordings. We didn't have a label paying for anything like that. That's what you got to do to be able to play somewhere and be able to do what you want to do. A lot of times you have to support yourself. Pay to play, as far as a lot of people know it, as far as what I know it, is where you're paying or you're selling tickets to support some regional act or national act that supposedly is going to have enough of a draw, bring enough people to your show, to get you seen. I personally advise against doing that ever. If you're one of the folks who is watching this because you're interested in starting a band, most of those people that are showing up to these pay-to-play events, I've never fucking heard of them. I don't understand why they're so special that I would pay them for the privilege of sharing a stage with them. If you're gonna fucking pay to open up for Slipknot, then fucking so fucking be it. But if you're gonna you're gonna fucking be paying out money, it better not be to open for fucking Pick and Flick and the Booger Sculptures or whatever. Like, fuck them. Like, they're not as special as they're being made out to be by whatever promoter or whatever. Just be patient. Play your small shows until you get enough of your own following. The draw that they're gonna bring isn't gonna necessarily be there to see the kind of music that you're playing anyway. So you might pay all this money to have this asshole show up, and the crowd that you were planning on getting your exposure from just fucking hangs out outside until they come on as the headliner. So, yeah. Long story short, don't pay to play in that fashion, but do support yourself financially for as long as you need to get what you want to get done. Keep in mind that more often than not, you're gonna break even if you're lucky with things like this, and it's more because it's something that you love and you want to do.
You know, we obviously thought we knew a lot about the biz or whatever in those days, but you get older and you realize we didn't know shit. And we definitely, if we could go back in time, we would handle that process even in its own a whole lot different, you know. It was a cool vibe in there though, you know, like that particular guy, he'd recorded a lot of great artists, and our hope was that if we got in there and like we just got this to listen to us and to record this, that maybe we would turn some heads, maybe we could get that demo done, drop it off in someone's and get us some gigs. We wanted to get that exposure because unless you had a manager back in those days that could book down those gigs for you, you probably weren't getting anywhere, you know. Like it really was being in the right place at the right time. And like, if you weren't from a big city that had a big scene where you could automatically get exposure, you really did have to just land in some luck to get that music into the right person's hand and hope to God they listen to it and give you a chance, you know. But as far as being in that studio, we were all focused on giving us that opportunity to make that happen. And I think for being in Reno, at least at that time, that was the best place you could go. You know, there was no one in Reno at the time that was going to mix something or record something better than him, you know. He was the guy at that point in time.
You got to know the members of Never Better a lot more than a lot of people in Douglas County did. Do you think most people understood how they showed up and why they were here?
No, I don't think they understood anything that happened in there.
When it very first was Never Better and we actually had a real drum set, like, I remember trying to get a gig and we couldn't play it because it was at a bar, but like it was the only available kind of thing. So we were trying to wheel and deal with these people and we were all like super pumped for it, and it was just like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't anything else available there in Klamath, you know.
Yeah. That wasn't a very, I mean, Klamath still to this day is not a very gig-friendly town anyways. We started playing shows in Reno, like, we were getting under 21 people into all sorts of different places in that godless shithole. But,
yeah, another thing, I think as far as getting gigs that was awkward for us is we were so young, we couldn't be in the bar scene.
Yeah, we had that dynamic too. I was always the oldest one in the group, so I remember I would have to do like the foot traffic of going into these bars, and to try to talk to these club owners and stuff and drop off a demo and all that. And then I would basically have to wait until they were interested or lie about the age of you guys, because you and Mike at the time were so much younger than me and Bart.
Did you ever find it strange that a small town like Myrtle Creek had so many local hard rock bands? No, but I'm glad that there was a decent variety of them. And the music that I did get to hear, I mean, there was some competition, but I'm glad that there was just a decent variety of music that I got to enjoy over the years.
So that was from the band Never Better. Are you aware that members from the band Never Better would go on to write the unnational anthem known better to you as the Pizza Song? And do you have any comments about that?
How dare you? I want that pizza. Almost forgot where that one started.
And what's your reaction when you hear that song? What typically happens?
Nothing. I certainly don't freak out and start dancing all over the place hoping to get a pizza.
All right, again, thank you to everybody who participated in this. This this project is coming out a little late. Yeah, I know. I expected there to be delays. I'm dealing with a bunch of musicians and stoners, so yeah, it was going to be a little late. But that's not to say that I haven't also been just kind of dealing with my own stuff and being delayed putting this stuff together too. But yeah, thank you to everybody. I'm glad that folks got to experience this short. I mean, it seemed short to the outside world what Never Better was doing. It was around for years, and like I said, a lot of it is behind the scenes. There's going to be one more from Never Better coming up next, and I hope to see you all there.